The Arrowverse was a massive success for DC, even during its downfall. It brought in so many people to DC. It helped people learn more about these characters in DC. And in that being, it kind of helped boost everything related to DC. So let me talk about that in this video. If you do enjoy, hit the like button down below, subscribe for new, notifications on, and enjoy this video. As I said already, the Arrowverse was a massive success for DC. It brought in people to learn more about its characters. They're so unique to DC, like Green Arrow, who really was not popular at all before Arrow. And then the Flash, who, yes, is kind of a popular character, but not in the way they did Barry. And also, Grant playing Barry was a new one for many people next to John. Supergirl was another show that brought in a lot of people that helped to learn more about this character because, to be frank, we didn't really know much about Supergirl going into this show, really. Then we get Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, Black Lightning, Stargirl, and I feel like I'm forgetting a show, but Superman Lois is not part of the Arrowverse, so, that show's not really that important to bring up. Especially since Superman is already in the Arrowverse, and we learned a lot about him through those times. Superman Lois doesn't really matter right now. But when you look at shows like Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends, granted, I don't really care for Legends. I quit watching season 3, but the matter of the fact is that those 4 shows really did carry the Arrowverse, even during its downfall. You can say Flash had a downfall after season 3 for some of you, or Arrow sucked after season 4, which is, I don't think, anywhere near true, but whatever. Or those who say Legends sucked after season 3, like I say, or season 7 was his best season, which is a joke, but whatever. My opinions aside, the matter of the fact is that these 4 shows, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends, really did draw in a ton of people. And actually more people than the DCEU did. You look at, for a big example, look at the Justice League movie when it released. At that time, I think it was a week earlier, or a week later, or somewhere around there, Crisis on Earth X released. And it did substantially better than the Justice League movie, which released in theaters. Crisis on Earth X is a TV show crossover, and it did better than the movie because it was actually like a Justice League movie in the Arrowverse. And granted, most of the seasons kind of sucked for Crisis on Earth X, besides Arrow and a little bit of Flash because it was season 4 at the time. But it still did really well because it's like a 4-hour-long Justice League movie, minus Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman, but it was still a really, really cool concept. And, it really did show what the Arrowverse can do when they put their heads together to get something done. You look at Crisis on Infinite Earths. Granted, that crossover was not the best. It was probably one of the worst ones. It brought in Kevin frickin' Conroy. It brought in Brandon Ruth as Kingdom Come Superman. I never thought I'd see that, It brought in so many things in that one crossover that really should just say how big the Arrowverse was when it was around. And should really go to say how big it can truly be if it ever does come back. And how big a universe can be if it ever continues what the Arrowverse is done. I also think it's important to point out that all the villains are introduced. You look at, people who didn't really do comics, Eobard Thawne or Slade Wilson or Prometheus or Zoom or Savitar or Godspeed or Rain or any villain that the Arrowverse brought up. Most of these villains people didn't know about. I didn't even know about a majority of these villains besides Slade and Thawne and Zalman. Obviously, they were different in the show more than the comic book counterparts. But the way the Arrowverse did them, you can heavily argue that they're better than their comic book counterparts. For Thawne, Zalman, and Slade especially, you can argue heavily that those 3 characters are much better in the Arrowverse than they were in the comics. Slade, you can argue that the comic book version is better because it's more of a Batman villain than Green Arrow villain. But again, the idea that Green Arrow not getting that much popularity before Arrow, and now hearing people say that they prefer to see a male version of Green Arrow because it brought so much depth to the character, something that we never really had before. To say something. The idea that right now people want more Flash content than before the CW show. People also want Grant Gustin to play the Flash, but we don't always get what we want. But the point is that at the end of the day, the Arrowverse truly did help DC in a fundamental way. Like I brought up Crisis on Earth X and the Justice League movie. You could also say that about the first ever crossover between Flash and Arrow in 108 and 308, I think it was. That had never, ever, ever been done before. A crossover like that. And it's something that, quite frankly, Marvel can learn from it's something that the DC future universe can learn from right now. Because James Gunn, let's be real, has no idea what the hell he's doing. And the past 5 DC movies have flopped harder than any other DC superhero movie in existence. Not just DC superhero movie, but superhero movie, period. I mean, The Flash, Shazam, Black Adam, Aquaman 2 looks like it's gonna flop. Blue Beetle flopped. I mean, this is a flop after flop after flop after flop. And whether you like those movies or not, it is the fact that those movies flopped. And you don't really realize why till you ask the question, why did they flop? And the matter of the fact is, the community for the DC movies, for the live action movies, I should say, is going nowhere because they keep reusing stories. They keep going down the arc of doing movies that nobody wants. The Arrowverse had this thing, even during its downfall, had stories that kept people coming back. I mean, even look at The Flash, for crying out loud. Like, in season 7, yeah, the season sucked, it was probably the worst season in the show. It still had a story that kind of brought some people back. Look at season 8. I mean, Armageddon was, I think, the best arc the show's ever had. And that was in season 8. I mean, people were leaving the show like crazy. A lot of people came back for Armageddon. I mean, it was a great story. I mean, they brought Right Death in. Granted, that arc wasn't that great, but it was something people wanted. They wanted Eddie to come back as Cobalt Blue. We got that. Again, not what everyone wanted, but we still got it. They brought in Deathstorm. I mean, that's something I never thought we'd get, but we did, because the people in the Arrowverse, the showrunners, Greg Berlanti, Mark Guggenheim, Eric Wallace, Todd Helbing, they all listened to the people. They all did, majority of the time. And they got what they could get done. I mean, they weren't on a movie budget. I guarantee if they were on a movie budget and had more rights than they got, we probably would have gotten a hell of a lot more than what we actually got. And that was brought up several times throughout the history of the Arrowverse. Batman, Joker, Wonder Woman probably. All these superheroes, all these supervillains, all these stories they could have done, it all would have fallen back on getting a bigger budget and getting approved by DC. But the fact that they had a low budget throughout the remainder of 10 to 11 years, and they got done what they got done, is something that DC movies can't even come close to on a bigger budget. So, and more rights for that matter. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. So you can say the Arrowverse died several years ago. You can say it had its downfall several years ago. You can say whatever you want about it. But the matter of the fact is, the Arrowverse substantially did better than the DC movie, live action movies at least, in terms of the Arrowverse being a starting block, I should say. But then the movies never held up. And so the Arrowverse literally fundamentally changed DC, and it gets little to zero recognition. I say it gets blasted 24/7 by people like the Black Lion, who's a YouTuber who just attacks the Flash every freaking day he gets, and people who just rant about Arrow because it's not a comic accurate Green Arrow, or people who attack, well, I guess this is really the only 2 shows that actually do get attacked on a daily basis. But when you truly look at it, taking away the negatives, which there's a lot, but there's also a hell of a lot more positives. The Arrowverse saved DC. I mean, can you imagine if the Arrowverse never happened? I mean, good Lord. I mean, DC would probably be dying like it is right now, honestly, with no Arrowverse. I mean, the Arrowverse, like I said like 3 times by now, fundamentally changed the idea of DC. It brought in something that nobody thought would ever happen, which is a live action superhero universe. That's never happened before. Smallville had a chance and then ducked out. I mean, you know, we had the DCU, but again, that flopped out because they didn't uphold anything. So, you know, the Arrowverse made a universe, kept it, it worked, and now 10 years later, after it's done, or 11 years later, I guess, we're coming up on our 12-year anniversary of the Arrowverse. I think just 12 years. Might be 11. I'm pretty sure it's 12, though. We can look back and say, God, those were like amazing times. Even during its downfall, even during like season 7 of The Flash, or season 8, or 4 of Arrow, even though that season was absolute dog water, or, you know, season 6 for some people of Arrow. The matter of the fact is, that's the entire Arrowverse. Whether you like other shows, you like just one of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or, you know, none of them. If you definitively said the Arrowverse had nothing to help DC with, you're biased and you're an idiot. The matter of the fact is that the Arrowverse saved DC. The Arrowverse helped DC get where it's at right now in terms of The Flash and Green Arrow and Supergirl and Superman and Stargirl, and which again, not very popular characters before, and Legends, you know, and Batwoman even. all these type of characters are characters that never really had the limelight besides the Flash and Supergirl. And, well, especially the Flash. I mean, the Flash had a major popularity, but when you look at Green Arrow, when you look at Batwoman, Supergirl, the Legends crew, even Stargirl, really, none of them had that big spotlight. They do now. When you look at characters like Kid Flash, Jay Garrick, or Spartan, or, any of those side characters that were superheroes, there was never really that done. Spartan was even a character before the Arrowverse, but he is now in the comics, at least as far as I'm aware. That was something that, again, the Arrowverse sparked, and it happened because of the Arrowverse. So it's not just the movies, it's not just live action, it's comics too that's fundamentally changed because of the Arrowverse. And again, people who deny that, quite frankly, aren't really paying attention. They aren't. I mean, again, the Arrowverse literally changed everything. It changed the fan base, it changed the supporter base. Yes, it gets so much hate, which it doesn't deserve majority of the time. Even during its downfall, the Arrowverse was still better than the DC live-action movies. And nobody can tell me otherwise. I mean, you can't prove that either. I mean, you can't prove that the Arrowverse sucked while the DC movies were doing great, because literally there's facts to show that the Arrowverse is doing much better than the DC movies right now. And so, even then, actually, but the matter of the fact is that, again, the Arrowverse has fundamentally changed DC in several ways. And it's something that I think James Gunn should look at and take the major idea of the Arrowverse, throw it into the movie universe, because they need that. They need an Arrowverse-style concept done with the movies. And if they do that, they might actually save the DCU. I mean, the DCU is out to a rocky start right now. I think Blue Beetle was the first one to part of that universe, wasn't it? I don't remember. I haven't been following that news. It's so ridiculous what they're doing. But, I mean, this should be like a piece of cake for them. But James Gunn doesn't know how to do anything, and he's just falling it all apart. But, whatever. Those are my opinions. I'm not going to go on those here. But, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Have a good night. Stay safe. I'll see you next video. Bye, guys.